Hey guys, I know that this video is a day late, but I did have two quick things I needed to throw in here at the start. Firstly, we did have some feedback that people really liked having the timestamp to skip directly to the lore portion of the episode, so moving forward we will be making an effort to include it on screen and in the description. Secondly, as some of you might have seen from our posts on socials as well as this channel, my fiance was recently hospitalized with a very serious infection. It's not really my place to talk about her medical history, but it was something that does have a decently high fatality rate. So thankfully the scary parts are behind us and I am back home for this last week now that we are out of the hospital. But I have still been really overwhelmed with work, follow-up doctor's visits and operations, and just to be candid, even when I did have the free time, I often found myself just staring at my editing software without really the motivation to put the work in that I think you guys deserve. So with that all being the case, I did want to let you know that I will be taking next week off just to have some time for myself, regain my focus, and really research and create episodes that you guys deserve. I do want to make sure that you understand I love this channel. The support we've had on this passion project already has blown us away even just in these short few months, and we will be back stronger than ever come March 13th in our usual time slot. If you're even listening to this right now, I do both want to say that I am sorry for the struggles that we've been having over this last few weeks, and thank you so much for your understanding during this difficult time. Now, please enjoy the latest episode of Tides of Lore. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 23rd episode of Tides of Lore. My name is Robert Silva, and I am one half of your host team, joined as always by my good friend Tim. How are we doing today, Tim?
Good, man. It's a day after patch day. I know you were excited for 11.15. I'm excited for 11.15. Recently switching the main to Alliance, my Paladin to Alliance. I want to make a lot of Alliance characters, so I'm excited. I think me and you are both going to go pretty hard. Ooh, it's also, is it Legion Time Walking as well?
Yep, right now. I haven't done any of it.
I think it is. I think it's also Legion Time Walking, so we can blast, brother. So yeah, let's get some potions. Let's blast. I also made a hardcore character, Big Dog.
Got it. Oh my gosh, she's back in the mix. So, what class this time?
I'm a shaman. My friend's a warrior. We're doing Horde. Doom Howl is the server. A shaman warrior. I healed, in classic coming back in anniversary just recently on the Paladin. And he wanted to play, we looked at the options. We like, okay, I'll play this, and this. And from what we chose on, it seemed like he wanted warrior. I was like, fuck it, I'll do shaman. Right? Wind Fury, helping out the warrior and healing and shit. It's too good.
It makes me.
I was a big hardcore
our first
fan.
Duo. The warrior shaman that died at level 10 RIP.
Yeah,
Fizzle.
Yeah, I already told him about that at Fizzle, dude. So this time I'm so much better, bro.
Oh yeah.
I have mouse over, healing macros. Like, I think PvP made me a lot better at the fucking game. And so I don't have that. Dude, my friend's insane, dude. You know how I said I had 300 something days played? He thinks he has like 700 days played and fucking just like old school, like classic. Like he plays TBC Arena is what he plays. So he wants to do that. He wants to get ready for TBC after this hardcore shit.
I mean,
that's what I've been doing, Big Dog.
Coming this year?
TBC is coming soon. Aren't they? I think they just either announced or they're in last phase in anniversary.
Damn,
so it's gotta be soon. Yeah, you and Bub didn't even get to max. Bro. I at least did fucking Ragnaros a couple times, got Previs and everything. But yeah, not even ready. So I might make a hunter. I think BM hunter goes hard.
That's what you did last time too.
No, I made a paladin.
Oh wait, you went from hunter to paladin, yeah.
Yeah, I went from hunter, and then I switched to paladin. Now I'm doing it the other way around, paladin into hunter. Is at least what I'm considering. But yeah, bro, I'm excited. TBC, I assume it's gonna be soon. Let's get those characters up.
Yeah, this world event is not gonna help.
Yeah,
I already got.
Same with me.
I mean, I'm just gonna go into what I've been doing since that hit. I've been working on my like I said, Shadowlands reps, and I've been getting those up and trying to get all the mounts for any of the Paragon boxes or anything like that. Yeah, mostly just doing that.
The Shadowlands stuff also with 11.15, dude. I was just about to do it if you were still editing. I was just gonna do Death's Advance on all of my characters and just get exalted real quick. Like
that's what I've been doing. I did the same thing with, because for like the Enlightened or whatever it was, you can literally just go to the world boss, and that's 500 rep, and you can just do that on a ton of characters. And since I've gotten my delves up, I can just get anyone that 629 gear too, and they're beefy. They be hitting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But other than that, I had a chaotic week. I didn't really have time to play. We're recording on a weird ass day because of that. But yeah, we talked about some dragon stuff last week. Your favorite, you love dragons. About some of Malygos, about some of Sinestra. What do we remember about that episode, Tim?
Oh, the Nexus Wars. I remember Malygos kind of making some rash decisions, thinking, he's like that guy who, you and your girl break up, like, I can't have her, nobody can have her, right? That kind of crazy guy, right?
I guess so.
He's like that crazy ex, and so basically he's like, nobody can have magic, and basically outlawed magic. And us, we love magic. We're addicted
we love
to that.
magic.
I don't think we just give up our addiction that easily. So we have to go head to head with him, and basically our fight with him in the Eye of Eternity. If you remember in Wrath of the Lich King, that was what, phase 2, I believe. You did Eye of Eternity, and cool raid vehicles. I'm not the biggest vehicle combat fan,
especially fucking Wrath vehicle.
And I can speak more about this. This is like when I started like playing the game, dude. I vividly remember doing Eye of Eternity, doing Nax. I remember like my grandma taking care of me and playing fucking WoW on a laptop that could barely even running Nax on my hunter and as well. What else did we talk about? Ruby Sanctum, I guess underneath the Wormrest Temple, that final raid, the last patch in Wrath of the Lich King, actually. Say we talked a little bit about Obsidian Sanctum and Ruby Sanctum.
Yes. And they don't really have too much lore, but Twilight bad, Black Dragon bad. So we go in there, clear that shit out, get some loot, as you do. Maybe a mount, like Tim.
Maybe. Tim. Yeah, I remember winning that mount, dude. Out of 25 people. Good times. But yeah.
And then we also talked about the Night of the Dragon book, where it's not too interlaced with the rest of these stories like the first two were, but it is still dragon stuff, and it doesn't really fit anywhere else, so I figured I'd slot it in there. So a bit about how the Twilight Dragons come to be, and Marisa Windrunner, and the mage Ronan showing up and being a badass like usual. But I believe that is pretty much all that we discussed last week. We also did have comments from last week, starting off with DCPTF2 saying, correction for timestamp, the Death Knight elf is a first generation, really the only generation that should be allowed to call themselves Darkfallen, not a blood elf. He's someone who turned before the destruction of the Sunwell, so he is still a high elf. All known blood elf Death Knights are third generation as far as I can tell. Blood elves encountered by Arthas before Wrath of the Lich King were part of Illidan's army used to assault Icecrown and the Frozen Throne, and such would have been raised as either a regular undead or a sand lane to make up the Scourge's noble/officer class. It's likely that when Arthas, as Lich King, planned to assault Icehope Chapel, would have been when he started creating the actual blood elf Death Knights, just because they were raised with the intent to be Death Knights and wouldn't fall under the standard Darkfallen or Sand Lane. It's confusing, but as the statement goes, while not all undead elves are Darkfallen, all Darkfallen are undead elves. And I was flabbergasted by that, because I know nothing about the elves when it comes to the Arthas stuff, which is why I avoided it for this episode too, until I can really dive into it like I want to.
I've been asking for it. We got now viewers asking for it. It's only a matter of time, but we're asking for it.
Yeah,
the people want to know.
The people do want to know, and I just, like I said, I feel like we don't really encounter the Sand Lane and stuff like that until we actually do get closer to Icecrown.
Cool, yeah, but they're cool, man. Everyone remembers them as the raid bosses. I mean, I vividly remember them because Invincible runs, for that mount, and she has like iconic lines. Doesn't she yell a bunch of stuff that's annoying? I forget exactly. It's been a while because I got the mount.
I've mentally repressed everything except for the professor guy. But even him, I couldn't tell you what the exact quote is. Oh, his good news, everyone, basically.
But I do remember her yelling some jargon, and so, you know, they are memorable. They're also just cool. You know, everyone loves elves, and then I have vampire elves. Like, give the people what we want.
There was also Arez Jerry returning to say, binged episodes 11 through 14 at work today. Just saved this one to my watch later playlist, heart. And Tim coming in to say, you're the GOAT, which is true. You are, in fact, a GOAT.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you guys ever see me commenting, keep an eye on. Don't worry, it's not some crazy person. It's me.
Not yet, at least. But yes. And then lastly, for everybody, we did have Leonidas9906 saying, been listening to you guys on Spotify while cycling to work over the last few weeks. I have absolutely loved your podcast. I quit WoW years ago, but I've always stayed a fan of the lore. Keep up the good work. And he also asked, will you guys make a third variant episode once you get to the Wolfheart book? And just to address that, yeah, we'll probably do at least one or maybe two more full variant episodes, especially as we discuss some of the stuff that goes into Cataclysm and Miss Pandaria, because he really takes a front and center stage just before everything in Legion and whatnot. And I mean, he still plays a story at Warlords of Draenor too, so definitely have more stories for Varian, that's for sure. At least one or two more full episodes for him.
What about after Legion?
Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
That's
We're talking about
me,
Varian and you're laughing. Oh my God.
My bad, sorry.
But yeah, that is what we got into next, or that's what we got up to last week. That is what you guys got up to last week. And this week we're going to be talking about the Vrykul. We're going to be talking about the Nerubians and some of the major players that you're going to be encountering as you begin to make your way into the leveling zones of Northrend for the Wrath of the Lich King. So let's just hop into that. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Tides of Lore on YouTube, or if you're on Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps the channel and ensures you won't miss a moment of this adventure. Now let's get started. So we actually got a lot of interchanging expansions that we're going to be talking about today. We got some Legion stuff, we got some stuff that's, you know, from Wrath of the Lich King, some Warcraft 3 stuff, as it kind of always feels like it comes back to Warcraft 3 when we discuss Wrath of the Lich King. It's going to be pretty crazy. First things first, we're going all the way back in time. We're going to try and keep this on a nice smooth timeline for you, but it always comes back to those damn Titan Keepers, and they did shit at all sorts of different points in time. This point was 20,000 years ago, a little bit longer after 20,000 years ago, back when the Titan Keeper tier and the rest of the Titan Keepers were like, we should turn the dragon aspects into like the Guardians of Azeroth. And there was one specific Titan Keeper who was like, stupid idea. I hate that. And this is a Titan Keeper by the name of Odin.
He's a dick, bro. Always a dick. He's always looking down on you, talking some bullshit. If you're a warrior in Legion, you're like the king of the class order hall, man.
Yep.
I mean, is he not a dick?
He's
dick. Like the only Titan that like talks like he does. I feel like no other Titan does.
Well, there is like Loken, who is corrupted by the old god, so he's also a dick. But yeah, he's definitely got a snootiness about him. And that is exactly kind of what this story's about, because while they're like, yep, we're going to make them into the dragon aspects and make them super cool, Odin's like, stupid, don't like that idea. I'm going to make my own dudes, and they're going to be so cool and so much better. He basically has this mindset that only the Titan Forged could be trusted to defend Azeroth. You can't have none of these nasty little elemental proto-drakes getting raised up and doing that. That's not very orderly of you. So he sees them empower the aspects, and he's like, that's some bullshit. So he withdraws from his duties, which before was kind of his main purpose was to lead the Titan Forge throughout whatever they were doing, right? So he takes a portion of this Titan facility known as Ulduar, yep, the same one that has Yogg-Saron imprisoned in it, and he's like, I'm gonna go create my own cool little realm. So he goes and he flies this wing of Ulduar up into the sky, and he creates the Halls of Valor. Hey, Tim. You were just talking about that place, you little warrior, you.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not also a dungeon in Wrath? The Halls of Valor. There's the Halls of Stone and
there's Halls of Lightning.
Oh, is it Lightning?
Yes.
So, but it is the Legion class order hall, though. Then
it is a dungeon in Legion where you go through and you fight.
Oh,
yeah.
And Fenrir's in it too, isn't he?
Yes.
The wolf.
Yes.
Yes, I do remember that. Okay, sorry, I got that mixed up. But yeah, Halls of Valor is cool. There's like people fighting in the middle of it for Odin, and it's a cool place.
So yeah, up there in the sky with his little citadel now, he creates the Halls of Valor. And he's like, all right, my domain has been established. It is now time to turn my attention to who I think will become like my champions. And he sees the Vrykul, the ancestors to humans. When these creatures are eventually infected by the curse of flesh, they will eventually become humans. But for right now, they're big, they're tall, they're made of stone, they're made of metal like the rest of the Titan Keepers are. And he basically is like seeing the strength and courage of these specific races. He's like, all right, basically any one of those who die in like a heroic death, I'm going to have your soul ascended to be with me in the Halls of Valor, where I'm going to basically have you be reborn as these storm-kissed versions of the Vrykul. And you'll be what I believe are the, what are they called? The Valarjar? Valarjar? Oh my god, I'm so...
The Val'kyr.
No, not quite. But the Norse names, like when we get into the Legion stuff and like that, and some of this Wrath of Lich King stuff, bro, I fucking suck at Norse names. There's so many J's and Y's and just shit randomly spewing about. I can't even. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Valarjar, like this legion of immortal warriors that he basically wants. But through this, like you did just say, he also needs something to bring these heroic dead to his halls. And he's like, I need something to pierce through that veil of life and death. Just to be spoilers, there's this realm outside of life. When you die, you'll go to this place called the Shadowlands, right? Oh, man, we love the Shadowlands. But just
best expansion.
The villain is so well thought out and so... Anyway, basically, he's like, I need people to go and snatch these souls, basically, before they reach the Shadowlands and bring them up to me at the Halls of Valor. And to do this, he basically had, like, through this deal with one of these other gods that we'll talk about more when we get into some troll stuff, he basically sacrifices one of his eyes. He trades for it. And through this, he's actually able to gaze into the afterlife, and he sees the Shadowlands, and he sees these, like... essentially angels, what you would imagine to be angels, and they're called the Kyrian. And he's like, ooh, I really like the look of those, so I'm basically going to fashion this new unit that I'm creating to snatch these souls to look like them. And that's where he creates the Val'kyr, or at least he's like, hey, I need people to volunteer to be the Val'kyr. So he's basically like, hey, anyone who wants to be blessed with this task and transcend mortality and become these shepherds of the dead, come join me. And then everyone was just like, I'm all right, actually. I don't think I want to do that. So Odin, mad as fuck, is just like, you know what? I'm just going to turn my daughter into it against her will. So his daughter, Helya, is then transformed into his very first Val'kyr. These shepherds of the dead. And she doesn't like that, as you probably know if you make it to Legion and stuff. She's pretty not okay with this, and it does lead to a lot of crazy shit.
Isn't she like, so I have a couple questions right now. Isn't she like the big Val'kyr, but she's like in like almost the underworld, it looked like?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I know exactly.
In Legion?
Yes, I don't remember what the realm is called. It's based off Helheim from the Norse mythology.
Oh no, that I think that's what it's called. It's Helheim.
Oh. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, no. I think that's actually what it's called. Okay, because I remember seeing her there. And also, when you think of Val'kyr, Sylvanas comes into mind as well. And I remember her playing a part in Legion, like stealing some artifact. But she had them before, Val'kyr before that. Are we getting into that in this episode?
We will unfortunately not be getting into that this episode. She'll get her first Val'kyr following the events of Icebrown Citadel.
Gotcha. Okay. So wait and see is what you're saying.
Yep. And once we get into some Cataclysm, we'll start, of course, talking about more Sylvanas, because we always got to talk about Sylvanas. She's always up to some shit, right? So basically, Helya, now horrified by her transformation by her father, she's pissed off. And now she is no longer loyal, and she begins to rebel against her father. And for a time, she's like, okay, I'll do what you asked. And she took the souls of these like super courageous dead to the Halls of Valor But eventually, Helya would get super upset, and she would tear this wound between the worlds, and she would cast Odin's Halls of Valor into this little isolation area where it'd basically be sealed away and be unreachable except for by super magical means. And with this, she would flee away into, like we were just talking about, her own little realm, the Hells of Helheim. And she would begin to form her own little legion of damned souls, where it will basically be the Valarjar of Odin's Hall and the Val'kyr of Helheim.
Does she hate him because of this?
Oh yeah. She basically only served him out of necessity, and then once she had the opportunity to strike back at him, she's like, "Fuck you."
Does anyone like Odin? I don't think the Titans even like
all
Odin.
those little simps that stand in his hall, probably.
Yeah, but that's because I think he's promising them power. Yeah.
Yeah. So following this, we did talk about this with the Earthen episode, but Loken will seize Ulduar. He'll have like the Curse of Flesh begin to affect his dudes, and the forges begin to be corrupted with this curse as well. And then he will eventually lock down Ulduar and basically be like, no more Titans, anybody can come in here, and he'll expel a bunch of these Titan Forged that have been afflicted with the Curse of Flesh out into the world of Azeroth. So with Ulduar locked down, with these creations that have been sent off into the world, there are also 2 of these Titan Forges that were made by Loken, and they are the fire giants, Vulcan and Ignis, who are these 2 massive fire giants, which are about as fire giant as you would imagine them to be. They're kind of girthy, I guess you would call them, for what you may be imagining. I mean, I feel like I imagine fire giant, and I think of something maybe Skyrim, like they're tall and skinny. Not tall and skinny, tall and thick.
Oh, okay. He's got some 2 C's.
It's cold up there. You gotta stay warm.
How so? Like wide, not very tall. Interesting.
It's pretty tall too, just also wide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they're up there in the Storm Peaks, and basically they go down from the Storm Peaks, and they come across this group of Vrykul by the name of the Winter Scorn, and they're like, "Hey guys, you know what we do when we come across people that are weaker than us? Enslavement time." So these kind of cruel versions of these fire giants then enslave these Winter Scorn, and they are now forced under their dominion, where they will be kind of forced to create weapons to then fight against even their own Titan Forge. And from there on out, the Winter Scorn will then launch an assault on all their other Vrykul buddies and begin to just attack all of the Titan Forged kin, so like the Earthen as well and all of that. And it is just kind of this brutal campaign known as the Winter Scorn War.
I've never heard of this war. I've never heard of this. So like, what time? This has to be a long time ago.
Before Azeroth shatters.
Never even heard of these elementals.
They're not elementals, but they are kind of Sons of Hodir, except fire versions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they basically begin to strike across all of these different Vrykul settlements and stuff like that. But then they encounter this problem, that Curse of Flesh thing, where now some of their soldiers are no longer metallic and stone and strong, and they're all squishy. And that's very not good, because squishy bad. With this being the case, they are kind of forced to reestablish what their plans are going forward. So they're like, all right, well, if these squishy dudes aren't going to cut it, it's time to create something that will, which is where they do create the molten golems, the ironbound colossi, and the smoldering constructs that were, for whatever reason, immune to the curse.
They get squished, but don't they gain free will?
We did talk about this, that yes, it does give them certain aspects that they weren't expecting them to be given when they turn squish, but regardless, at least when you are the minority being the squishy people, it's not a good thing, especially with the Vrykul, who are all about strength and fighting. And
yeah, but you look at us, the players, and we're kind of the most powerful things in the game, are we not? So I don't know. But we got free will, or do we? I don't know. We've been working for the Titans pretty much this whole time anyways.
Yeah, that is the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So back up north with the Winter Scorn and these fire giants and stuff like that, they're like, all right, well, that went great. What else can we do to be complete dickheads? And then they look up to the sky and they see proto-dragons. And they're like, ooh, proto-dragons. We like having mounts. Doesn't everyone like? I'm sure that they saw that time lost proto drake up there, and they're like, "Ooh, I want that." So they basically begin to enslave these proto dragons, as you might imagine. They're like, "Cool mounts, we'll take those." And as they begin to mount up and go and once again remount their offensive on anything that they can see in their area, Tyr hits up the dragon aspects, and he's like, "Hey, dragon aspects, they're kind of enslaving your lesser kind, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm sure that they would find that offensive. Sorry. But don't you want to do something about that?" And they're like, "Yeah, you know what? Actually, we do." So Alexstrasza, Malygos, Ysera, Nostromo, and even Neltharion, before he goes off the deep end, is now going and waging war against these fire giants.
With proto dragons? Or did they...
To free proto dragons, actually. But I guess, yes, the proto dragons would be helping them as well. This is still during the time where there would be like before the War of the Scaleborn, so it's not like all of the beef and stuff like that has happened yet.
That's what I was thinking, because I thought at one point they were like, "Don't be proto dragons, drink the juice," and
that
they
comes
said
after
no.
this.
Dragonflight, they made that a whole big deal.
Yeah, which is why I'm like, we're mixing a whole bunch of shit, because this is coming from that stuff, some of the stuff before this is coming from the Legion stuff, so yeah. It's a lot of mixing and matching, but yes, calls upon the Dragonflights, and the Dragonflights, they come to aid, and as they are just ripping across this battlefield, the Vrykul advance is forced to stop. While, Malygos is siphoning the magic that even keeps their golems animated and frees a bunch of their enslaved proto-drakes. It's, as we come to find, whenever the dragons get called to war, it's usually a really bad time for whoever they are going against, at least in the lore. I feel like in the actual story, then the dragons sit around and they're like, "Champion!"
Well, they also make you do all the work most of the time.
That's what I mean. Dude. That's what I mean. They're sitting there in the lore. They're like the action heroes in the game. They're like, "Come here, I got something I need to ask of you."
Dude,
go do
the
all
Titans,
of this.
They get it from the Titans. The Titans do it too. Do you remember? I've been running the Legion raid and Taurus, the Burning Throne. There we go.
Yep.
And the Titans watched you do everything, dude. They're just sitting in their thrones, watching you.
Yep. Allegedly, they're using all their power to hold back Sargeras. But yep.
No one wants to work these days, man.
Is that it? Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So yeah, basically now Tyr, with the aid of the dragons, he manages to defeat all of these Winter Scorn and their elemental fire giant dudes. And that is where he will go to be like, "Hey, Loken, what's going on in Ulduar? You doing okay in here?" And I'm sure that he's like literally whispering himself in the corner, saying all sorts of crazy shit. And he's like, "Oh." So he takes an artifact known as the Disc of Northrend. All of these Titanforged are like, "Actually, we have to run away." So they're like, "Please help us. We need to find a new place to live." And Tyr's like, "Okay." So basically he, and along with two of his other Titan keepers, they begin to create this exodus of Titanforged that will then begin to spread across Azeroth. Like we talked about, they will go to eventually Ulduman and do that stuff, and they will go to Tyr's Fall, where they will eventually become humans and stuff like that, and so on and so forth, right? So the Titanforged spread across Azeroth to go eventually become the mortal races that we know of. Vrykul, that did go with him, that watched him die, be like, "We're gonna hang out here. I think we're just gonna chill here and protect this place where Tyr died, because he was such a cool guy." And those will eventually go on to be portions of humanity that we'll know. There is also this other race that is really important to Northrend, besides the Vrykul, that we do need to talk about. And it's those bug people. You remember how when the trolls and the Akyr were fighting with each other, the Akyr were kind of sent scrambling all across Azeroth, and then eventually they just formed like their own little splinters of different evolutions of bug races, like how we had the Karaji down in Silithus, and we have other ones that we haven't talked about yet in other locations, but they're there.
Are you talking about when the trolls didn't finish the job?
Yes, as you would say, the
I
trolls
just want to
did not
clarify
finish
that.
the job. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're weak. They didn't finish.
Tim's troll bias is coming out.
I'm playing a troll shaman in hardcore. I'm playing a troll shaman. To be fair, I'm giving it a shot.
I'm sure Bub loves to hear that.
I just want to clarify.
Okay. But yes, they do go up there. They create the obsidian destroyers like we discussed from some of these creatures that were kind of in the area of Ulduar. And then eventually the Drakari trolls do manage to kill off most of them until they, like Tim said, burrow away and do not quite finish the job, where they will evolve just from being within the presence of the old god Yogg-Saron. And eventually they will transform into what we know as the Nerubians. And
they're kind of... Are they neutral? Are they kind of neutral at this point? Like, not really fighting for anyone? They're kind of doing their own thing?
I mean, we got Nerubian allies in...
We do.
King, right? Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of confusing for someone who doesn't look into the lore.
Mm-hmm. I will say the Azjol-Nerub, or the Azj-Kahet stuff does make it a bit more complex, but yeah. And I mean, I guess for this is kind of just a short little segment that we were going to talk about before we kind of mix the two previous segments together. But so they found their city of Azjol-Nerub, which is this kingdom of shadow underneath the icy lands of Northrend. And they also have their previous city from when they were kind of just the Val'kyr, known as An-Kahet, or the Old Kingdom. Eventually, however many thousands of years, it doesn't make it super clear of when this happens, but by the time that we do reach Warcraft 3, the Nerubians are just like, fuck the old gods. And even when you do go through there and you're playing as Arthas, eventually you'll run into a faceless one, and they're like, I have no idea what the fuck that is. So it must have been a good long amount of time that they managed to forget about an old god, because I didn't even know that was possible. But at some point, yes, they do shake off their control to the old god Yogg-Saron, and now they are just doing their own thing up there in Northrend.
Trying to find their place in the world.
As we all are, right? So, back with Odin, the Halls of Valor, the Vrykul. They now have, like, he's basically looking through the candidates of who is the most worthy to be made into the Valarjar, right? And among them, there is this figure known as Magnar. And apparently, he is just goated with the sauce when it comes to the Vrykul, because he, basically with every single challenge that he comes across, just destroys it. And he's so renowned that all the other Vrykuls basically begin to imitate him because of just how goated with the sauce he is. And specifically, he earns his prestige through fighting against the Nerubians, because as much as the Titanforged like to fight with each other and do stuff like that, you got to remember that the Titanforged were created to kill old gods, and the Nerubians are descended of old god creations. So, ooh, that's tough, buddy.
Do they just go crazy like when against an old god?
Hey, man, purple, void, bad, naughty, die. I've never met a Titanforged that didn't want to see the Void dead, except for the corrupted ones like Loken. Sorry, Loken.
I'm excited for our next expansions, man. It's going to be an all-out war. The way it's setting up,
crazy.
Yeah.
But basically, he gains this title of the Icebreaker by creating these tunnels using the glacial terrain by whenever it would crack and fracture, that he would be able to get into the Nerubian defenses and surprise them super easily. So basically, yeah, he just becomes super prestigious and well known amongst all the Vrykul for being just the coolest guy and the most swaggerest of them all. And one day he looks up to the sky. He sees this black dragon flying overhead, and he is just taken. He's in love. He's absolutely not actually,
corrupted.
But he does see the black dragon, Neltharion, and he's just like, wow, that thing's cool. So one of these days, he's like, guys, I really want to go into this lair that I seen that's nearby, because remember at this time, Northrend and the Broken Isles are still kind of squished right together, right? So he knows that this black dragon hangs out in his little lair up in the high mountain. And he's like, guys, I really think we should go check out this dragon's lair. And everyone's probably for the longest time like, that's stupid. But eventually he gets enough people who are like, that's not stupid. And they go to raid Neltharion's lair. And they wait for the dragon to fly away before they go in. And they're like, all right, cool, let's go check it out. They head inside and they see, well, black dragons doing black dragon stuff, usually, as you might expect, and turns into a fight. And they're fighting off these black dragon stuff, and eventually Magnar's just like, guys, we got to get the fuck out of here or we're going to die. So as he tries to retreat through these unfamiliar tunnels, he quickly rushes back, and just as he's about to reach the exit, Neltharion returns. And it doesn't
They weren't even fighting him?
Nope, they were just fighting like the dragonkin and stuff like that. Maybe some whelplings, I don't know.
And they already had to retreat. And then Big Daddy Neltharion comes in.
Cutting off their
These
exit.
guys they're cooked. They're like literally, they're gonna get cooked.
Yep. One bellowing breath of flame decimates most of these Vrykul, but Magnar, just in the second that he was about to set off all of this fire, picks up like this hard piece of debris that he finds right in front of him to use it as a shield. And as he holds it in his hands, the explosion goes off and he gets sent fucking flying out of the chamber by the explosion of this heat breath, and realizes that this thing that he's holding is not a shield, but it's one of the broken scales of Neltharion himself. So with that being the case, he just comes flying down the mountain, and eventually now he has this scale of Neltharion. And
is that the artifact sword and shield?
I'm happy that, you recognize it.
Hell yeah, dude.
We'll get there in just 1 second. It would take him years to recover from all the burns and fractures that he suffered. But eventually, he would come to have this idea. He's like, I need to find a way to forge this into a weapon. But I don't think that there's anyone who's capable enough to forge this into a weapon. So there's only one logical path forward. I need to learn how to forge weapons because there's no one better than me. So
wow, this guy, very humble.
For years and years, he learns how to forge weaponry, and he becomes this master forge worker because he knows that he's only going to get one shot at forging the scale into the weapon that he wants it to be. So eventually, after a long enough time, he's like, it's time. And then it's said for days on end. He eventually returns, and he has this scale and this sword, a shield known as the Scale of the Earthwarder, and the sword known as Scale Shard. And yes, it is the Prot Warrior artifact weapon.
I mean, I just knew because I do remember actually going into High Mountain and getting something for it. And it was probably the intro quest line for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks sick, man. Oh my gosh. Legion did so good with their artifact weapons. I really do hope they let people get the Mage Tower appearances again. I don't care about the prestige. They're all so cool.
Well,
like,
and
let us have it, man. Let us go back.
This weapon is like, it's not one like the Doomhammer or like the Ashbringer where it had lore before they brought it into Legion. This was all crafted for Legion, and it just still fits so well. It's still such a cool artifact. Yeah, like there was no time where in Wrath of the Lich King you would have encountered anything like this. We were just placing it here because it leads into the story for the Vrykul well. But
I thought it was maybe in like a book or a quest.
It might have been, but I don't think so.
That's awesome. I love that.
And now wielding his new blade and shield, Magnar Icebreaker is just this man beyond legend, or I guess Vrykul beyond legend, as he now is basically unstoppable. He returns to Northrend where he hears that those Nerubians are once again getting up to some shit, and they're creeping towards Ulduar to try and, get some Titan secrets or whatever. So as he basically pulls up, he's just like, oh, you guys are cooked. And that's really how it goes, because then it is just basically sung in song for how much he slaughtered these poor Nerubians, where he manages to kill them for so long that eventually it is said that they just do not return for another 1,000 years.
Oh my God. Wait, so he just killed their whole population?
He's just whooped them for so long that they're like, we're going to go in hiding and we're just going to put a big fat snooze timer on that one. But with that being the case, he does catch the eye of those basically gods. They're not gods, they're the Titan Keepers, but there is Helya, right? And Helya is like, ooh, I want that guy. But she is also kind of afraid of him, because as much as she's like, wow, that guy would be like the greatest soldier to have in my undead little army, but I think he might just be so fucking angry that even I can't control him in undeath. So with this being the case, Magnar breaks the Nerubians and they go run and hide for the however long, right? And then he turns his gaze towards one of their ancestral cities of Stormheim, which currently is being occupied by those highborn night elves, the gall of them. And he's like, ooh, I have an idea. If I go and recapture what is that sacred city to us, maybe we can restore the final bond and I can find Odin and bring him back into the realm, because remember, Helya sealed him off. And he does. It is said that he goes and he sieges this, and it's like this arcane versus forged steel battle. But with his unbreakable shield just absorbing spellfire, he crushes these Highborn. And with that being the case, the city of Stormheim once again belongs to the Vrykul. But at this time, there were certain Vrykul that had been convinced by Helya to basically be like, hey, if you betray him, you know, the tale as old as time, hey, if you betray him, I'll give you power so you can be as cool as he was, or even cooler, right? And some of these Vrykul are like, all right, cool. Well, I guess the battle's over. There's no better time than now. And they kill his son, Hrunthir, which I assume is how that's pronounced. And then eventually, in that moment, they do also slay him. And it is just said that while he is dying and they're doing all that they can to kill him, all of these Kvaldir just like charging at him, he is a maelstrom of rage, just butchering every shadow that is sent at him. But eventually he falls and is eventually killed. Thank you for tuning in to Tides of Lore. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow adventurers. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you. He was basically this king, right? I don't think they officially call him like King Magnar or anything like that, but he is essentially king. And then there's this other king that will come to lead the Vrykul, following him at some point eventually. And that will be this guy by the name of King Ymiron, who just before the sundering happens and everything breaks apart, he is the leader of this Dragon Flayer clan. And he goes to like prove himself to the fellow Vrykul by launching all these attacks against what is their ancient rivals known as the Jalgar. And the Jalgar are just kind of these like beastmen creatures. And I didn't really know who these were when I was reading, and I just looked them up, and the only information I could find is that they are what eventually turn into furbolgs.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And the reason that they even get sent, or that you'll find furbolgs where they are, is because they were attacked so often by these Vrykul that they were pushed out of Northrend and into these other areas, specifically the central forests of Kalimdor. And this is kind of that golden era of Vrykul dominance where they are going to be about as powerful as they're gonna get.
Was Ymiron, don't you fight his like soul or something in one of the Utgard Keep or Pinnacles?
He is the last boss of Utgard Pinnacle. Yeah. He's got 6 cemeteries you walk in front.
I knew it.
But yeah, so the Curse of Flesh eventually catches up with them as well, though. So this Dragon Flayer clan, now they don't just have this visible disease where they're turning kind of squishy, but also they now have these children being born, and they are small and frail and mortal. And in Vrykul society, abominations.
Oh, don't they do some atrocities now?
Basically. So it kind of splits the society of the Vrykul, some of which who are like, they're soft, they're flawed, they need to be killed because they are not Titan Forged, they're runts, and they're a sign of our weakness. And there are other people who are like, but they're still children, we probably shouldn't kill them. And eventually, King Ymiron withdraws to meditate and think about this, and he's like, who are the only beings that I know that are powerful enough to create a curse like this? Isn't it obvious? The Titans. They did this to us. And with this, he's like, yes, we need to kill them. So he comes to the conclusion, anyone that has the Curse of Flesh needs to be killed.
He didn't take into consideration the old gods? Because isn't this where the Curse of Flesh derives from?
Yep.
It has to be the Titans. They're the only ones, not the whole other evil fucking villains.
Can we bust out the Skinner meme again?
You might have to. I'm tired.
There we go. But yeah, so Titan worship now outlawed, and the squishy beings must be put down. And following this, any of these children that were born afflicted would be executed by their own parents or would face death themselves. And basically this is where you get certain ones that would flee. But then, yeah, like you mentioned, they do get up to some fuck shit because there is people who are specifically sent out to go kill anybody who didn't kill their own child. Specifically that dude that you've ran so many times up there in Utgard Pinnacle, the blue dragon rider, tamer, whatever you want to call him, Scotty the Ruthless.
Scotty Dotty, we like to party. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
familiar with that motherfucker. That mount for the longest time. Everyone had it. All my friends. And they made fun of me because I'm a mount collector, and that's the one I didn't have. But I got it. I mean, you gotta get it.
But yeah, he basically earns that title, the Ruthless, by being this ruthless hunter of his own people who refuse to put down their, quotations, runt children.
That's kind of crazy.
I know, it's pretty fucked up.
We
right?
were the ones to kill him. Well, no, I guess he got raised in undeath by the Lich King.
Just as the curse of flesh is really beginning to devastate all of the members of the Dragonflare clan and the Vrykul, they look for this desperate solution, and they come up with the ones that everyone else seems to come up with. Hibernation time. So basically, they seal themselves in these great necropolises. The one that we really know of is the Gaelgebron. Norse names, man.
Bless you.
But eventually, yeah, and where not even the Great Sundering would break through their rests, and they would just remain there, frozen as stone, hoping to wake up to a world that was no longer afflicted by the curse of flesh. They go to sleep, right? All this shit happens. Eventually, Ner'zhul is sent to Azeroth to be the Lich King armor and flung to be up there on the frozen throne by Kil'jaeden. And he does. And doing this, he begins to unleash this psychic domination over everything nearby, as well as the plague of undeath, to begin to turn all the inhabitants, the ice trolls, the Vrykul, the Wendigo, all of those into what we know as the Scourge. And
like the whole continent?
Pretty much. As much as he can, at least.
Huh.
And it goes pretty well until he encounters those Nerubians, like we talked about. And I guess that they have just some sort of psychic adaptation that prevents them from being very well controlled because of their connection with the old god or whatnot, because they are immune to this mind control, as well as immune to this plague of undeath. So they begin to just fight with the Lich King and his soldiers, being like, yeah, we're not going to be slaves again, as they fight with the Scourge forces. Unfortunately, even if they can't be killed by the plague of undeath, or they can't be psychically dominated in life, they can be just resurrected the good old-fashioned way. So this big old war kicks off with the Lich King and the Nerubians, and it's led by this figure known as King Anub'arak. And it, for a very long time, is just kind of back and forth, but eventually the Nerubians kind of begin to do the tried and true hit and run tactics that seem to be very effective in the World of Warcraft world. But eventually, even though they're threatening Icecrown, they just begin to run out of numbers, basically. Like, though they are disciplined, they are willing to fight to the death, this has been years and years of attrition, and with the other side always being able to just reinforce their own army by resurrecting your own dudes, it begins to slide backwards, and basically the Nerubians begin to get pushed back. And that is where they reach out to their kind of sister city, the other city the Nerubians really have, Azj-Kahet. And they're like, hey, Queen Neferis, we are getting fucked over here by this Lich King. You think you could send any reinforcements? And she's just like, I fear that if I help you, it's just going to bring chaos to my lands. She's like, yeah, good luck. And basically she closes the tunnels that go in between their two cities, which is crazy to think about because, like,
it's far as fuck.
Khazalgar is far as fuck and, like, under the ocean. So, yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Eventually, she's just like, good luck. Hope you figure that out. Basically, now with no help being on the way, and the other side now having these dreadlords appear that are beginning to help them out, they break through into the city of Azjol-Nerub, the Scourge, and it is basically a slaughter. Though there is this one figure by the name of Gatewatcher Kithrir, is this like Nerubian sages or something like that, manages to seal off a bunch of the city, specifically the lower kingdom, so that only the upper kingdom gets obliterated by the Scourge and taken over. So through that, the Nerubians manage to survive, but in the end, the King Anub'arak is killed and brought into undeath and a servant of the Scourge. which is where he then basically has Anub'arak go to the remnants of Azjol-Nerub, and they're like, hey guys, I know how we can get the rest of those guys down there. And they collapse the city on top of it.
Nice.
And they bring these ziggurats down that just crash down upon it. And that is basically where he earns the title of Traitor King, because by the time that we eventually do reach like Wrath of the Lich King and stuff like that, there are still certain Nerubians who are just like Traitor King, and I'm like, honestly, you guys are just survivors at this point.
So they're mad. They're mad he did that.
Apparently they're mad that he died and got resurrected. But in fairness, like even kingdoms like Quel'Thalas, they don't really like Sylvanas because of her actions during getting resurrected and killing a bunch of people like Quel'Thalas and stuff like that. But again, even if it wasn't her fault in the slightest, the Scourge now growing all across Northrend, and you have those Vrykul that some of them have begun to wake up, and they are actually just like, you know what? I think this Lich King guy, spitting. I'm here for it. I think that he is just on something else. You guys don't see the vision, okay? So they just team up with him. They kind of see him as like this. Yep, they kind of just see him as like this god of death, and they're like, we should join him. And if we do, and we prove ourselves to be like the greatest warriors, then he will bring us back as some of his Ymnijar, those guys that come running out when the gates open during Wrathgate. I don't. This name is hard as fuck to pronounce. I'm sorry. Ymnijar.
They're like, if you can't beat him, join them. Is that pretty much it? And then when you join them and you die, you get to do it round 2.
Yeah, basically, and they're all about being the greatest warriors forever. So that sounds like a great deal.
Yeah, I mean, even if he fails or you fail, you get risen.
But there is also that poor, sad result that if you do die and you're not that cool, you'll just get resurrected as a Varghul, and those are the like ugly looking Vrykul dudes that aren't cool at all and don't have yeah. So be good, basically. Don't suck.
Well, good thing I'm always good at WoW.
But yeah, so now resurrecting all these servants of the Scourge did not now fall on just these necromancers, because he comes into possession of some of those Val'kyr, like we were talking about, those fallen Vrykul women that are able to resurrect people. Many of these now like twisted Vrykul would basically be like itching to get turned into some of these Val'kyr to resurrect people, because like now that's the way to prove one's absolute devotion, even in death, to the Lich King. So I guess moral of the story is Lich King is more aura than Odin.
Yeah, I mean, no one talks about Odin. Everyone talks about the Lich King.
Yeah.
I got a Lich King poster next to me. I don't got an Odin poster.
But you could.
No, I don't even know if they sell that shit on display.
Not sponsored. But even amongst these Scourge Vrykul ranks, there is this problem where a bunch of these different factions, like the Mjordan and the Ymjar, are always vying for more of this honor and undeath. So they kind of begin to form grudges for each other, and they're not always super unified. And that is until you do the Utgard Pinnacle stuff, because there is that King Ymiron guy that comes back, and he's now one of these undead that are ruling from Utgard Pinnacle for the Lich King. And he has this magic ancient horn, where basically if he blows this magic ancient horn, it will reunite all the clans, and then that'll be bad for Azeroth, because right now they're already fucking us up and they're not unified, right? So
blow the fucking horn.
Yeah, time skipping a little bit forward, even further into the Wrath of the Lich King stuff. We go into Utgard Pinnacle. I'm sure that we don't really care why these Vrykul are here, but they keep attacking us, so it's time for them to die. We go in there. There is one of those sand lane that we do need to talk about in more detail. So I promise that we will get into that, but right now, we're not here for them. We're here for Vrykul. So we go in there. We fight all this stuff. We miss on the mount like Tim. And then we get all the way to King Ymiron. And we do manage to kill him before he blows the horn and unites all of the clans.
Why didn't he just blow the fucking horn?
I mean, the chair was just too comfy. Did you see him sitting there, bro? He's vibing.
I just don't understand. He watches you kill 3 bosses or whatever. Like, blow the horn.
Yep. So yeah, with him dead, the Vrykul nation now in shambles, and the Scourge kind of fractured, it's kind of your first little crack into getting into the Northrend campaign as we make our way up to the Iceground Citadel. But there still is those Nerubians down below, specifically that kingdom of Azjol-Nerub, like we mentioned, right? It was mostly destroyed and mostly collapsed in on itself, but there still is that spiderlord in there, as well as some other dudes that are doing the Lich King bidding and whatnot. And for a lot of the initial arrivals of the Northrend campaign, they are just munched on randomly by these Nerubians. Specifically, when the Horde arrive in Howling Fjord, they're like, hey, this looks like a really good spot to build our base. They build a base there. Turns out, it's directly on top of a nice little tunnel that leads directly to Azjol-Nerub. So,
nice.
Immediately as you arrive, and it's Warsong Hold, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's Boring Tundra. Warsong Hold is. I don't know what the Howling Fjord one is.
You're right. That's what I'm talking about anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, immediately as you arrive there, set upon by these Nerubians as the Horde, you are, basically you just fight with these Nerubians a ton until eventually you are then sent in to go, and with the Warsong offensive that you've built, you are tasked with going into the area of Dragonblight to fight off some of these other Nerubians and go into the city of Azjol-Nerub and slay the big bad Anub'arak, who I guess I should have also mentioned. Anub'arak does have like that brief little story where he helps out Arthas and leads him through the underground tunnels to sneak up on Illidan during Warcraft 3, but yeah, that's just a little footnote, something I did forget to mention. He's that guy.
Isn't there supposed to be a whole city, and that's Azj-Kahet? It's kind of making up for that in the War Within right now.
When they originally did Wrath of the Lich King, they really wanted Azjol-Nerub to be its own full city, and then it ended up just being a dungeon. 2 dungeons.
2 dungeons. Yeah, 2 dungeons. 1 lower, 1 higher. Cool concept. I did like going in there and killing them. It was like underground. You haven't seen really cities like that in a while. It was a fun concept. Looking back now we do have Azj-Kahet, and it's just, that's probably the zone I hate going to the most in War Within.
Everyone was talking about how pretty Azj-Kahet was and whatnot when it comes out, and I had my unpopular opinion. I don't like Nerubian architecture. It looks cool when I'm going to like Naxxramas, and it's just like that area.
Yeah.
But when it's everything else, I don't really like it down there.
I do appreciate some things. I did like the Delve boss that we had to do for the mount. I did like that. So I like it in small amounts.
Mm-hmm.
But like Azj-Kahet, that's my least favorite zone. Hollowfall is the best.
Hollowfall is the best.
The other, what are the other zones?
Ringing Deeps and Khaz-Algar.
Yep. And all those are good. I really do not care. Azj-Kahet.
Yeah. I know that there are a lot of people who really loved Wrath, who really loved Azj-Kahet, and that's you. More power to you. It's just not for me.
I did like the lore of like them getting corrupted, It's cool lore and everything, but just the vibe. Not my thing.
I am interested to see where they're going to take them further. After the Queen died, we have very little info about what's going on.
I think we're going deeper, bro. We're going deeper into the world. I think dude, have you seen the leaks of the scrapped art that they used? And it's like,
no, I don't look at leaks.
Oh, dude, it's like a huge hand, and it's like Azeroth's hand. It looks like and stuff. Like it looks like we might be going deeper, boys.
I'm seeing that. I saw the words "old god" on Reddit, and I couldn't help myself because I'm such a little simp.
Hey, you got to take a look.
But yeah, the Horde, now allied with these few remaining living Nerubians, go in there. They clear out Azjol-Nerub, and one of these few remaining Nerubians that is still living has like this hidden cache of tons and tons of eggs, and I don't think they ever go anywhere with it, but eventually I imagine it's just implied that these will hatch into more cool Nerubians. But again, even in Azj-Kahet, I don't think we've encountered these yet. But at the very least, all of this does now secure the Horde's flank, basically, through Dragonblight into the area of Icecrown, so they can begin preparing for their next attack on the Wrathgate.
Oh, let's go.
Did you have any other questions, comments, anything else you want to discuss before we call it?
Give the people what they want, Rob.
The Sand Lane?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a full episode. There might not be enough information for a full episode, but have we talked about Nax yet? No, they're in. Oh, it's not Nax. No, ICC. Excuse me. That's where they're at.
See, that's
I
what
guess
I'm
we'll
trying to
learn
save
when
them
we get to
until we're in
ICC.
Icecrown. Yeah.
I see it. I do.
Behold my vision. Then we can go through each prince, talk about each of them if they have anything cool, and then you'll already know what happened in that zone. It has been foreseen. It'll be all right. But yeah, if you guys did make it this far, drop the video a like, drop us a sub. It really does mean the world to us. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. Your guys' support truly means the world to us. If you're interested in hearing more, we have our full show on YouTube and Spotify, new episodes dropping every Tuesday. I also want to take this moment to give a special thank you to Fantasy Lo-Fi for providing the music for this episode. You can find them on YouTube at Fantasy Lo-Fi or on Spotify under Bits and Hits. Be sure to show them some love as their music does truly bring this journey to life. Once again, thank you for joining us on Tides of Lore, and we will see you next week.